The bank statement felt slick with the sweat from my palm. Not my sweat. Hers. It was a humid August afternoon, the kind where the air conditioning just quit trying, and the smell of old fry grease from last night's dinner clung to the yellow kitchen curtains. I didn't have to read the line twice. The number was 0. A clean, fat, useless 0. "Mom," I said. My voice sounded flat, thick with the heat, like I was talking through cotton. Susan was sitting at the plastic-covered kitchen table, sipping iced tea like this was a regular Tuesday. She was wearing that stupid pink visor she wore when she went power walking, even though she hadn't moved farther than the couch all day. Her nails were freshly done, bubblegum pink. "What, Ronnie?" she said, not looking up. She tapped her spoon against the glass. Clink, clink. "The 529 plan," I said, holding the paper out. My hand was shaking. I hated that my hand was shaking. "The college money. It's gone." She finally looked up, not with surprise or regret, just annoyance, like I'd interrupted a very important thought about what to watch on cable. "Oh, that." She set her glass down. "We used it." "Used it?" I repeated the word. It sounded small and dirty. "Used it how? That was 17 years of savings. Granddad started that when I was 2. She sighed, a dramatic, chest-heaving sound that meant she was tired of explaining basic reality to me. "Look, Veronica, Jason needed a truck." I stared at her. Jason, my older brother, was 19. He was currently unemployed, living in the basement, and his primary ambition was perfecting the exact shade of yellow-green achieved when mixing cheap beer and lukewarm Mountain Dew. He needed a truck? A used Honda Civic costs $4,000. The fund had $48,622. The reality of the number hit me again. A physical punch to the gut. $48,000. My ticket out of this sticky curtain grease house. My entry into Boston University, where I was supposed to start classes in 3 weeks. "It was a Ford F-150, she corrected primly. "A King Ranch model. He needs reliability, Ronnie. He's a man. He's going to need to start his life soon." I walked around the table slowly, leaning my knuckles on the sticky formica. I felt the heat of the air conditioner trying and failing to keep up, but inside my chest there was a sudden, icy drop. "I need to start my life too, Mom. I was accepted. I have an orientation schedule. I bought the twin XL sheets." She leaned back in the chair, crossing her arms over her chest. The pink visor cast a shadow over her eyes, making her look like a judge. "Listen to me and listen close," she said, her voice dropping that specific octave that meant the conversation was over and her decision was law. "Boys matter more, Veronica. They just do. They have greater earning potential. They have more pressure on them to succeed, and frankly, they need more support." She took another sip of tea. Ice cubes clinked. Clink, clink. "You're smart," she continued, dismissively waving a hand. "You'll figure it out. You can take community college courses online, maybe wait tables, save up. You don't need a fancy private university. Jason needs a strong start. He needs that truck for his image, for job interviews." Jason hadn't had a job interview since he was 16, and that was for a summer gig scooping ice cream, which he quit after 3 days because the uniform was too itchy. I stood there, breathing in the smell of the grease and the cheap lemon cleaner she used to mask the smell of the grease. The world outside the window, the perfect manicured lawn of our perfect suburban neighborhood, suddenly seemed distorted, like looking through thick, wavy glass. "So," I whispered, the rage finally starting to rise, thick and metallic in my throat. "I worked 3 jobs every summer since I was 14. I kept a 4. 0 GPA, and I applied for 17 scholarships, all while doing my own laundry and yours, so that Jason could have a leather-seated truck that he will dent in 3 months and forget to change the oil in?" She bristled. "Don't take that tone with me, young lady. I am your mother. This was my decision as the custodian of the account. It was a family asset, and the family needed the asset. The family needed it? No. Jason needed it. You took my future and gave it to him so he could play grown-up." My voice was louder now. It cracked near the end. She stood up, pushing her chair back with a loud screech. "You are being over-dramatic. You are always so dramatic. Get over it, Veronica. Life is hard. Go get a job. I dropped the bank statement onto the table. It landed on a wet tea ring and immediately started bleeding blue ink. Fine, I said. It was the only word I could trust myself to say without screaming. Fine. I turned, walked out of the kitchen, and didn't stop until I reached my bedroom upstairs. The air in the hallway was thick and still. I could hear the bass thump of Jason's rap music vibrating through the floorboards. I locked my door. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I didn't cry. Crying was useless. Crying meant you needed comfort, and the person who was supposed to offer comfort was the person who had just professionally murdered my hopes. $48,000. Gone. My stomach cramped tight. I didn't eat dinner that night. I didn't sleep much either. I lay on the twin bed, staring at the ceiling fan that spun too slowly, making a rhythmic whir, click, whir, click. I listened to the sounds of the house. Mom watching TV downstairs. Jason revving the engine of the F-150 in the driveway at midnight just for the hell of it. By 4:30 a.m., I was moving. Quietly, I pulled out my laptop. First, I changed the date of my housing deposit for BU. I couldn't afford to lose the $500, but I couldn't afford to go either. The rejection email from the university came 12 hours later. It was clinical and polite. Next, I updated my resume. I had already put in my 2 weeks at the frozen yogurt place, thinking I was done with minimum wage. Now, I needed 3 jobs, maybe 4. I walked 3 miles in the early morning dark to the Dunkin' Donuts on Route 9. They were hiring for the overnight shift. I filled out the application, smelling faintly of old sweat and fear. By the end of the week, I had 2 jobs confirmed. Job 1, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at Dunkin' Donuts. Making coffee, cleaning floors, dealing with the graveyard shift regulars, truckers and insomniacs, people who smelled like desperation and diesel. Job 2, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Olive Garden, waiting tables during the lunch rush. That was where the real cash was. Tips. My schedule looked insane. I slept from 7 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. I ate a power bar, went straight to the Olive Garden, worked the rush, came home around 4 p.m., studied until 8 p.m., napped until 9:30 p.m., and then went to Dunkin'. I barely saw Mom or Jason. When I did, it was usually in passing. "Don't forget to take out the trash, Veronica," Mom would call, always when I was halfway out the door, already smelling of coffee grounds and exhaustion. "I need the car tonight," Jason would announce, leaning against the counter, holding the keys to the F-150. Big party. I didn't argue. I just stared at him. He was taller than me, broader and absolutely useless, but he had the truck. He had the money. He had her belief. My physical state degraded fast. My feet were the first thing to go. Waitressing shoes, even the expensive ones, were no match for standing on concrete for 8 hours, then standing on greasy tile for another 4. My arches screamed. I took ibuprofen like candy. My shoulders developed a permanent knot from carrying trays full of breadsticks and heavy coffee pitchers. The exhaustion was a cold, heavy blanket wrapped around my brain. I started drinking coffee at 150% capacity. My hands developed a fine tremor, but I was saving. Every single dollar. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Mom didn't use. I set up automatic transfers. I didn't touch the money. I enrolled in online classes at the local state university extension program. I took them during my downtime, the hour and a half between getting home from the restaurant and napping before the donut shift. I did homework in the back booth at Dunkin' after 3 a.m., using the weak Wi-Fi and the sound of the ice machine as white noise. I was studying finance and business law. I wasn't just going to college anymore. I was going to get a weapon. One night, about 4 months into the grind, I was folding napkin silverware at the Olive Garden. My manager, a tired woman named Maria, came over. "Ronnie, you look like death warmed over. Are you sure you're okay?" "Just tired," I lied, stacking the bundles neatly. "Look," Maria said, lowering her voice. "There's a serving job open at the Exchange, downtown. It's high-end corporate lunch, very exclusive. They pay nearly double what we do, plus better tips. But you have to wear a suit. A suit." The Exchange was the place where the real estate sharks and the corporate lawyers ate lunch. It was all dark wood, hushed tones, and expense accounts. It was also a 10-mile drive from the house. I took the job. I quit the Olive Garden. I kept Dunkin' for the fixed income. But now I had high-end waitressing from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I bought a cheap black suit from a thrift store and tailored it myself in my tiny room. The exchange was a whole different world. I learned how to move silently, how to read a client's mood by the way they touched their water glass, how to recite the daily specials without sounding like I was selling anything. I served CEOs and partners. I heard snippets of million-dollar deals over the clatter of silver. I watched the lawyers the most. They wore confidence like a uniform. They spoke with authority. They were the ones in control. They were the ones who made the rules. I wanted that. The money piled up. Fast. At the 9-month mark, I had enough for tuition for my first 2 semesters at the state university, in person. I also had enough for a used Civic, not a King Ranch F-150, just a dented little blue Civic that started every time. I planned my exit with the precision of a military operation. I waited until Mom and Jason were out late, celebrating some minor win of Jason's. He finally remembered to change the oil in the truck, apparently. It was a Tuesday night in May. The heat was back, but the house felt cold. I rented a U-Haul trailer barely bigger than a closet. I packed my books, my thrift store suits, and the few mementos I cared about. Everything else was junk. I found the notepad and the cheap plastic pen. I didn't write an explanation. She didn't deserve one. I wrote 5 words on the counter. I moved out. Don't call. Then I added a 6th, because the moment demanded it. It's gone. I meant the money. I meant the relationship. I meant the hope I ever had for a normal family. I walked out of that house and got into the little blue Civic. I drove north, toward the state university campus, toward the dingy shared apartment I had rented. I didn't look back. I didn't feel relief. Just a cold, hard emptiness. I had to finish my business law homework for my 8 a.m. class. I pulled over at a rest stop 30 miles outside the city, set my laptop on the passenger seat, and started reading about tort reform. The headlight glare from passing trucks lit up the pages. Survival meant working harder than everyone else, and I was fine with that. 4 years later, I graduated summa cum laude. I didn't walk the stage. I was busy taking the LSATs. I scored high enough to get into a top-tier law school on a full scholarship, plus stipends for living expenses. They wanted me. They needed my GPA. I chose Stanford. I wanted to be as far away from that humid, sticky kitchen as possible. 3 years of law school were hell. I worked harder there than I had at Dunkin' and the Exchange combined. But this time, the pain was intellectual, not physical. I lived on ramen and caffeine. My clothes were perpetually wrinkled. I took corporate law, securities law, litigation. I didn't want the emotionally messy work of divorce or criminal defense. I wanted clean, hard money. I wanted to understand the rules so I could break the people who thought the rules didn't apply to them. I never heard from Susan or Jason. They tried once, maybe twice when I first moved, sending texts that were quickly blocked. I changed my phone number. I changed my email. I was a ghost. My focus was absolute. I interned every summer at white shoe firms. I networked with people who wore cashmere and spoke about offshore banking. When I graduated, I had my pick of firms. I chose Sterling and Price, one of the biggest, meanest corporate litigation firms on the West Coast. I was good, very good. I had a hunger they hadn't seen before. I didn't get tired. I didn't get distracted. I looked at problems like they were bank statements. Cold, hard numbers, and a 0 at the end if you didn't watch out. 5 years into my career, I was made junior partner. I was 29. The firm threw a party. I wore a perfect charcoal suit, Italian silk, tailored to the millimeter. No grease stains, no loose threads. I was Veronica Sterling. I took the name change after law school. No more Susan's daughter. I bought a penthouse apartment with a view of the Pacific. I drove an expensive black sedan. I was safe. The money was safe. Everything I owned was mine. And no one, absolutely no one, could take it. The phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon in early November. Rain lashed against the skyscraper window. The weather felt appropriate, gray, heavy, and unforgiving. My secretary, Chloe, buzzed me. Ms. Sterling? A very difficult potential client on the line. They were referred by the Bar Association's emergency list. Seems like everyone else in the city turned them down. Do you want me to transfer it to intake? I was bored. I was handling a massive merger that was currently idling. No, Chloe, send it through. Let's see how difficult. I picked up the phone. This is Veronica Sterling. My voice was low, controlled. A woman's voice, high and panicked, rushed into my ear. It was thick with desperation, the kind of raw fear that sounded utterly foreign to the world I now inhabited. "Oh, thank God," the voice gasped. "You're the last firm. You have to take my case. They're trying to ruin me. They're trying to take everything. Ma'am, please slow down. What is your name and what is the nature of the legal issue?" "My name is Susan Miller." The air left my lungs in a sudden, sharp rush. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Susan Miller. The name felt like a rock in my mouth. "And the business?" I managed, my professional veneer barely holding. "Miller Home Furnishings. It's a furniture store. They're suing us. A class action. Something about shoddy materials and fraud. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, he just quit. He said the case was hopeless. I need someone tough, Ms. Sterling. Someone who understands small business." I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the driving rain. Miller Home Furnishings. That was the retail store my mother had poured her life into after my father died. The business that was always just about to take off. "I see," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Mrs. Miller, based on the severity of the class action, this will require a non-refundable retainer of $250,000, paid up front, before we even schedule the initial consultation. Are you prepared for that?" Silence stretched across the line. A long, agonizing silence. Finally, she whispered, "$250,000? That's everything I have in the business account. Litigation is expensive, Mrs. Miller. Fraud cases are particularly messy. We only take cases where the client is serious and prepared for battle." "I am serious. I am desperate. I'll pay it. I'll mortgage the house if I have to. Just please meet with me." Her voice broke. I looked at the clock. 3:00 p.m. I had an empty hour. "Fine. Come to the office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Sterling and Price. Ask for Ms. Sterling. And bring the check." I hung up without waiting for her reply. I sat there for a full 5 minutes, breathing deeply, letting the cold fury settle into place. I walked to the private bathroom attached to my office. I looked in the mirror. My face was sharp. My eyes were bright and hard. The girl who smelled like coffee grounds and anxiety was gone. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I needed to make sure my office was perfect. I called Chloe. "Chloe, cancel all non-essential calls tomorrow morning. And tell the facilities team I need the conference room next to my office ready. The big one." "And Chloe?" "Yes, Ms. Sterling? When Mrs. Miller arrives, do not let her wait in the lobby. Bring her directly to the conference room. And make sure the door is open. I want her to walk in and see me immediately." I smiled, a slow, predatory tightening of my lips. I adjusted the knot on my tie. I was ready. The next morning, the city was bright and crisp, scrubbed clean by the rain. I arrived early. I spent an hour reviewing the public records on Miller Home Furnishings. The case was bad, very bad. The fraud claims were solid. My mother was facing bankruptcy and possibly criminal charges. I sat at the massive cherrywood table in the conference room. I had a leather-bound legal pad in front of me, a Mont Blanc pen resting beside it, and a chilled glass of sparkling water. I was wearing my most intimidating suit, a perfectly tailored navy piece with sharp, powerful shoulders. At 9:58 a.m., I heard the faint tap, tap, tap of high heels on the marble floor outside. At 10:00 a.m. exactly, the footsteps stopped at the doorway. Susan Miller, my mother, walked into the room. She hadn't aged well. She was wearing a cheap, slightly shiny black suit that looked like she had slept in it. Her hair was still perfectly coiffed, but her eyes were puffy and red. She looked scared and small. She stopped dead in the doorway. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She was looking past the empty chairs, past the gleaming wood, right at the person sitting at the head of the table. Me. Her face went pale, the color draining out entirely, leaving her looking like cheap porcelain. "Veronica?" she choked out. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I let the silence hang there, heavy and thick with years of resentment. I slowly picked up my Mont Blanc pen and tapped it once on the legal pad. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller," I said, my voice smooth and devoid of any warmth. "Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss about your impending financial ruin." The thick mahogany table felt cool under my forearm. I didn't lean on it. I just rested my weight, perfectly balanced. That table cost more than her entire failed greeting card store ever brought in. She didn't sit immediately. She stood there, wavering, clutching a cheap plastic-handled purse, the kind you buy because it's a deal. Her suit was wrinkled, polyester blend. I could smell the faint, stale scent of desperation and the cheap perfume she always wore. "Veronica, please," she whispered. Her voice cracked, dry as old leaves. "Mrs. Miller," I repeated, sharp and level. "I asked you to sit down. This is my office. Time is billed by the minute." She stumbled into the massive leather chair opposite me. It was a visitor's chair, but it still cost about $5,000. She looked tiny in it, swallowed by the dark brown hide. I watched her hands tremble as she placed the purse on the floor. She kept her eyes fixed on the center of the table, refusing to meet mine. The air conditioning hummed, a low, constant vibration that only accentuated the silence. Outside, 22 stories down, the sirens of Manhattan were muffled, distant. Inside, the only sound was the clicking of my own heart, steady, cold. I pushed a thin, embossed folder across the table toward her. The paper was heavy, cream-colored stock. Everything here, even the paper, screamed permanence and cost. "This is the engagement agreement," I said. My voice didn't waver. It was the voice I used in closing arguments, the one that meant I had already won. Standard retainer agreement. Standard rates. I am a partner here. My hourly rate reflects that. She didn't touch the folder. Her eyes flicked up to my face for the first time. They were wet, red around the rims. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Good. I know what you think of me," she started, her breath catching. I raised my hand, palm flat. A signal. "Stop. I don't think anything of you, Mrs. Miller," I corrected her. "I have assessed your situation. Legally, it is poor. Emotionally, I have no investment." The lie tasted metallic and bitter, but I pushed it down. The investment was there, a dark, heavy mass sitting right behind my sternum, and it was paying dividends right now. Every shallow breath she took was a down payment. "The suit," I continued, leaning back slightly, letting the chair squeak just once, intentionally. "The negligence claim is solid. Your former attorney, Mr. Thompson, was correct to drop you. You committed clear and demonstrable intellectual property infringement, and your attempts to cover it up were frankly amateurish." She flinched. "It was a mistake. I just borrowed some concepts, Veronica. They're trying to ruin me." "They are going to ruin you," I stated calmly. "And they will succeed, unless we intervene. Intervention is expensive." I tapped the folder again. The Mont Blanc pen, a gift from my firm when I made partner. Heavy, balanced, precise. "The retainer is listed on page 3, I instructed. "Read it." She fumbled with the folder, her fingers slick. She opened it, the sound of the thick paper rustling loudly in the quiet room. Her eyes scanned the page, skipping down until she hit the bold numbers. The number was $470,000. She gasped, a small, pathetic sound that didn't even register against the hum of the HVAC. $470,000, she repeated, her voice thin. That's impossible, Veronica. Where would I get that kind of money?" I waited. I let the number hang there, shimmering in the cool air. It was a number carefully calculated. It wasn't just my original college fund, $180,000. It was that amount plus 23 years of interest, compounded aggressively, plus a punitive multiplier. It was the exact price of the future she had tried to steal from me. "That is the non-refundable retainer," I confirmed. "It covers the first 4 weeks of discovery and motion filing. This case is complex. It will likely require external forensic accountants and specialized IP counsel consultation. That money goes quickly." She stared at the document, then back at me. The fear in her eyes was starting to mix with a dawning horror. She was realizing this wasn't just a lawyer. This was me. "You're doing this on purpose," she accused, the whisper gaining a hard, desperate edge. I smiled then, a small, tight lift of the corner of my mouth. No warmth, just bone. "Of course I am, Mrs. Miller," I said, leaning forward now. My elbows were on the table, my posture immaculate. "Did you think I was going to offer you the friends and family discount? We are not friends. We are certainly not family. You are a client, a liability, and a very expensive prospect." The memory of that day 18 years ago slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. The smell of the Burger King grease on my uniform, the ache in my arches, the textbook spread out late at night on the sticky counter of the college library because I couldn't afford a warm apartment. I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second. I saw David's smug face leaning against the terrible red Mustang that Mom had bought him after emptying my account. Boys matter more, honey. They just need a head start. I opened my eyes. The sight of her financial terror was oxygen. "You remember that day, don't you?" I asked, my voice low. It wasn't a question. She swallowed hard. "Veronica, I know I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I have regretted it every single day. I was under pressure. David was having problems." "Stop," I commanded. I slammed the Montblanc pen down so hard the impact echoed. "Stop using his name as an excuse for your financial negligence. Stop using him as a shield for your moral bankruptcy. That's what you did 18 years ago, and I will not permit it in my office. We are discussing your legal exposure." I slid a second document out from beneath the first. This one was only a single page. It was titled, in bold black letters, "Statement of Acknowledgement and Understanding." "Page 4 of the retainer is standard," I explained, pushing the single sheet toward her. "This page is bespoke. It is a mandatory requirement for my representation." She hesitated, her eyes darting between the six-figure retainer and this new single sheet of paper. "What is this?" she whispered. "It is a statement you must sign, acknowledging the historical basis of our current relationship," I said. "No court will see it. It is for me, and for you. It states, in clear language, why I am charging you this amount, and why I agreed to take this case when every other reputable firm in this city refused to even schedule a consultation." She picked up the page. Her eyes scanned the text. Her hands began to shake violently. I had written it myself last night. It was precise, brutal, and entirely true. "I, Patricia Miller, hereby acknowledge that the fees and conditions outlined in the accompanying retainer agreement are fair and necessary and fully reflective of the decades of financial and emotional debt owed to my daughter, Veronica Miller. I acknowledge that in 2005, I unilaterally removed $180,000 from her dedicated college fund to finance a non-essential purchase for my son, David Miller, based on the stated belief that boys matter more and that my daughter was capable of handling the resulting financial hardship through self-reliance. I acknowledge that I caused her significant material and emotional damage. I watched the color drain from her face again. It was a slow, satisfying process, like watching paint peel off a wall. She looked up at me, the horror now complete, absolute. She saw the trap, the deep, steel-jawed trap she had walked into. "You expect me to sign this?" she breathed, utterly defeated. "I expect you to sign it, or you will leave this office unrepresented," I told her, my voice flat. "The choice is yours. You have approximately 4 business days before the opposition files for summary judgment. And if that happens, you lose the store, you lose the house, and you may face criminal charges for fraud." She looked around the office, desperate, cornered. The walls were paneled in rich walnut. The view was the glittering, impossible skyline of Manhattan. Everything around us was a monument to the life I had built with nothing, the life she had tried to prevent. "You hate me," she stated, not as an accusation, but as a realization of fact. "Hate is an exhausting emotion, Mrs. Miller," I countered, grabbing a gold-plated pen from the holder and placing it squarely on the acknowledgement page. "I am past hate. I view you as a financial problem that requires a specific, expensive solution, and I am uniquely qualified to provide that solution." She sniffed, a wet, ugly sound. Tears pooled at the corners of her eyes, but they did not move me. I had run out of sympathy for performative misery years ago, scrubbing deep fryer filters at 3 a.m. She hesitated, her breathing shallow, erratic. She reached for the pen. Her hand shook so badly she had to use her other hand to stabilize it. "And the money," she whispered, holding the pen hovering over the line. "The 400,000? Where am I supposed to get it?" "You still own the house, don't you?" I replied. My eyes narrowed. "The one you're planning to leave to David. It has significant equity. You sell the house, pay my retainer, and we begin discovery." Her face crumbled. The house was her final monument to her failed parenting philosophy. The house was David's inheritance. "You're taking everything," she choked out. "I am recouping some of the interest on a debt you incurred," I corrected her. "You have 30 seconds to sign, or the meeting is over." The clock on the wall, a simple, elegant piece of design, ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. With a shuddering sigh that seemed to deflate her entire body, she bent over the paper and signed the acknowledgement. Her signature was a messy scrawl, but it was legally binding. I pulled the page toward me and reviewed it, my eyes sweeping over her pathetic handwriting. Satisfied, I slid the retainer agreement back to her. "Sign here, on page 3, I instructed. She signed the second document. The contract was complete. She was legally, financially, and emotionally mine. I leaned back again, picking up my Mont Blanc. I tapped it lightly on the signed contract. "Congratulations, Mrs. Miller," I said, my voice ice cold. "You are now represented by the best intellectual property litigation firm in the city. You have paid the required amount. You have acknowledged the terms." She looked up, a glimmer of desperate hope returning to her eyes. "So, you'll save the store? You'll save everything?" I smiled then, a wide, true smile, the first one I'd felt in years. It didn't reach my eyes. "Oh, I'll take the case," I confirmed. "I wouldn't miss this for the world. You see, I spent years working 12-hour shifts, putting myself through college and law school, paying off student loans that you should have covered, all while smelling like cheap oil and old coffee." I stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. The height advantage, the power, it was all mine. "The real reason I took this meeting, Pat," I said, using her first name, a deliberate, disrespectful intimacy, as I walked around the desk, stopping right over her. "It wasn't to help you. It was for this moment. It was to ensure that the cost of your mistake was not just financial, but absolutely, devastatingly personal." I placed both signed documents neatly into a portfolio. "Here is what happens now. I will assign a junior associate to handle the discovery motions. They are quite basic. I will oversee the strategy, but I will not personally attend depositions or court appearances. I have better things to do than argue about greeting card clip art." She was watching me, her mouth slightly open, confusion warring with terror. "However," I continued, my voice dropping to a low, lethal purr, "I will ensure that every single penny of the settlement, every single remaining asset you possess, is liquidated. I will save your skin from jail time, but I will strip you of every last vestige of the comfortable life you prioritized over mine." She tried to speak, but only a dry rasp came out. "You said boys matter more, Pat," I reminded her, leaning in close so she could smell the expensive, crisp scent of my custom suit. "You were wrong. What matters is leverage. What matters is the ability to walk away, or the ability to demand a ruinous price." I took a final, deep breath, savoring the moment of utter triumph. "Call my secretary next week," I concluded, stepping back and gesturing toward the door. "We will schedule the asset liquidation process. You're dismissed." She sat there, paralyzed, the knowledge of the total destruction sinking in. The house, the business, the entire inheritance she had protected for David, gone. All paid to the daughter she had abandoned. She finally pushed herself out of the expensive chair, staggering slightly. She looked like a ghost, fading in the bright, clinical light of my success. She didn't say goodbye. She just stumbled toward the door. I didn't escort her out. I just watched her go. When the heavy oak door closed behind her, I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city stretched out below me. Millions of lives, millions of debts. I lifted the phone and dialed an internal extension. "Sarah," I said, my voice returning to its professional, efficient tone. "Pull the file on the Miller case, set the retainer aside, and Sarah, call my brother, David Miller. Tell him I have a business proposition for him. Tell him I need him to meet me at the old Burger King parking lot downtown at midnight." I looked out over the skyline. "Tell him I need to discuss the title transfer of a very expensive red Mustang.